Michael Saylor said that if this happens, Bitcoin will shoot up to 10 million US dollars. And that's exactly what just happened. This is insane. One of the world's leading banks will proactively offer Bitcoin ETFs to its customers in the future. This is the endgame that Michael Saylor has talked about so many times. And other asset managers like Blackrock and company will follow suit here as well. It's very, very likely that now comes the Fed shock. This is so crazy. Donald Trump is now calling for a 300 basis point interest rate cut. Also, his portfolio is being published by Bitcoin hater Elizabeth Warren. Over $7 billion here in Bitcoin and crypto holdings. That's right, crazy. We have Eric Trump, who's making massive new Bitcoin purchases. We have the United Arab Emirates, who are now making a massive move forward with Bitcoin. Let's hit the like button below for new all-time highs. Yeah, I know it's a consolidation phase right now. The Bitcoin price, it feels like it's not moving an inch forward, backward, up or down. It's basically just like a stable coin, anchored here, totally fixed. Here, somewhere in the range of 10,700, 8, 9, 10,000 US dollars. And it just can't break out of this range. But hey guys, no need to panic. Let's take a look at what's happening behind the scenes. And you really should. Let this make you super bullish. Now we have Alaska's $60 billion state fund considering making a Bitcoin investment. So here, they're thinking about going all in on Bitcoin, really throwing money at it. And that's honestly a pretty wild story. We're seeing more and more sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, and so on weighing up investments in Bitcoin. And then check this out. The state giant Emirates from the United Arab Emirates. They've just signed a contract for Bitcoin and the integration of cryptocurrency payments. That's absolutely wild. So in the future, when you're flying around with Emirates, first class, I know there are always some people flying around in first class, all fancy. When you fly with them, you'll be able to pay with Bitcoin and crypto in the future. And that's obviously a really, really big deal. It's also just a marketing effect that kicks in when such big companies start offering Bitcoin payments, even if only 3 people end up using it, or something like that. It's still a really, really powerful marketing tool. There was a really, really cool exchange here between Anthony Pompliano and Michael Saylor, who were discussing the idea of pouring billions, trillions in English, but billions in German, into Bitcoin. Anthony Pompliano says, "Today is a really, really good day. Let's get after it relentlessly." And Michael Saylor says exactly the same thing here. We're supposed to be looking at Bitcoin here. And now it's being interpreted as if they're about to, well, to pour millions or billions, even billions in the German sense, into Bitcoin. And then we also have Eric Trump, who now wants to buy more Bitcoin for 220 million, having raised new capital for his Trump America company. And we've known all along that Eric Trump is by far the most bullish one in the Trump family. That means Donald Trump isn't as bullish as Eric Trump. Eric Trump is the one who's pushing Bitcoin forward the most, who also said, hey, Bitcoin will definitely reach 1 million US dollars. He said that back then at the conference in Nashville. And now, attention, we're moving from Eric Trump to Donald Trump. And now things are about to get really wild. He's demanding at least here, calling for at least 300 basis points of rate cuts, so at least 300 basis points down. Something like that has never happened in all of US history. That would mean lowering interest rates by 3%. That means for every percentage point, the US has to pay $360 billion more in interest payments because they're not lowering the rates. And that's why he's saying here, lower the rates, lower the rates. And he's already said it so many times. And here, lowering by 300 basis points would mean that interest rates would be back around the 3% mark. There have also been a lot of complaints about mortgages, that is, for houses, from the Department of Housing, or whatever it's called in the US. It's called something a bit different. But there was this guy, Pulte, who also checked all this out. With Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I can never quite get it right, he checked all that out. There were also all those threats from Pulte. Here, people are blaming Jerome Powell, saying he's responsible for the whole real estate market crashing and nobody building anymore, and so on. I mean, in my opinion, that's going a bit too far because, by now, we've reached a point in the world where it's completely normal for central banks to constantly stimulate the economy. And then there was also that clip from Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren was always at the forefront when it came to pushing Operation Choke Point 2.0 forward. Just like that, to really crack down on banks that invested in crypto and other companies that got into crypto. She was the one leading the whole thing. And now we're seeing an interview with her. Let's take a quick look at it. Actually, this isn't an interview. It's more of a hearing or a lecture. And here, she's speaking quite openly about Donald Trump's portfolio. On one hand, that's bullish, but on the other hand, it does leave a bit of a bad taste. Now pay attention.
But nobody wants weak crypto rules more than the President of the United States. A majority of President Trump's wealth, as much as $7 billion worth, is now based in crypto, from issuing his own stable coin to issuing his own meme coin to owning a Bitcoin mining company and to controlling a huge portfolio of crypto investments.
She said no one wants, as much as Donald Trump himself here, bad or lax Bitcoin and crypto regulations because he personally benefits massively from them. He has 7 billion here in Bitcoin, in crypto, in a mining company, in some kind of meme coins, and who knows what else he listed there. And yes, for us Bitcoin holders, of course it's huge if Donald Trump pushes Bitcoin regulation forward. Of course, it does have a bit of a bad taste because Donald Trump now, well, Bitcoin, crypto, he's making so much money, and apparently now also with real estate. There are hardly any gains happening here anymore. Instead, it's all taking place through this whole Bitcoin and crypto story. And that's always a really important topic, as I keep telling you. Elizabeth Warren has figured it out. Of course, she's a bit jealous because she doesn't have any Bitcoin exposure. Of course, she could just buy Bitcoin herself. But Donald Trump actually has the incentive to drive up the Bitcoin price, to push the Bitcoin price higher, which is pretty crazy. That means we're basically in the same boat as Donald Trump. And I know you can criticize that and so on and so forth. But now, on top of Donald Trump, who not only has the exposure but also wants to lower interest rates, that would give his crypto Bitcoin portfolio another boost. And on top of that, he wants looser regulation. And then he goes on. Here we have Hunter Horsley from Bitwise, and he's reporting something truly astonishing. And it's so mind-blowing, guys. You can hardly imagine it. And Blackrock has already reported on this before. And so have other asset managers. Now listen closely to what he's saying here. He says here, I'm pleased to report that one of the world's leading banks, which manages over $1 trillion in assets, has approved a Bitwise crypto ETF for advisors to use in managed accounts. Now the work begins, supporting thousands of advisors in developing their thesis on cryptocurrencies. Work that we are happy to do. 2025 marks the beginning of the mainstream era. And that means, to break it down, people are coming to Bitwise. And now they want a Bitwise crypto ETF that they can pass on to their clients through their advisors. That means the advisors will then proactively start pitching Bitcoin. And that's exactly what Michael Saylor mentioned when he said, hey, if the banks start offering you Bitcoin, then Bitcoin will be at $1 million. And when the banks proactively approach you, then Bitcoin will be at 10 million. And now we've reached that area, we've reached that level. This is exactly what's being described here. The banks will then offer their clients the Bitwise crypto ETF. That means we've now reached the final level here. Of course, the Bitcoin price won't shoot up to 10 million right away just because 2 banks do it, or 3 for 5 banks. But here we're talking about thousands of advisors. But if banks all over the world do this, then we're looking at a Bitcoin price of 10 million US dollars. And that's just so insane, guys. You really have to wrap your head around that. That means when you go to a bank, the bank will come to you and say, hey guys, we don't just have a Bitcoin offer here, but we actually recommend that you buy the Bitcoin ETF here. Just like nowadays, banks bombard you and whine at you about those weird, crappy building savings contracts that make absolutely zero sense, that are just here to, I don't want to say it's a scam. It's not a scam, but it just doesn't make any sense except for the banks who pocket all the fees from it. And in the future, if I understood this correctly, it will mean that banks will proactively recommend Bitcoin to you. Not super aggressively, maybe, but still. But at least if someone asks, hey, where can I invest? The answer will be, here in the Bitcoin ETF. Here, number go up for the Bitcoin price, and then he also says, no, I can't tell you the name yet. It's the job of the banks or the asset managers to share this. But if they have thousands of employees, thousands of advisors, then it must be something big. Whether it's JP Morgan or, I don't know, something else. I don't know, but it will definitely be something bigger. And yes, actually, Hunter Horsley also added here, today I spoke with a Bitwise client, a CEO of an asset management firm in Germany with over $1 billion in assets, US dollars in Germany, who shares over 30% of his assets with clients. So I think that means over 30% allocation. That's probably what it's supposed to mean. I just translated it badly. In the coming chapter, millions of people will gain access to this space through asset managers. And that's exactly it. That's the thing. There are simply certain levers. For example, when banks onboard to Bitcoin, when asset managers onboard to Bitcoin, they're basically bringing an entire client portfolio with them. Onboarding to Bitcoin. And that's a really massive development. Or if Apple were to onboard now and suddenly all iPhones had a Bitcoin payment interface. Overnight, those are the kinds of massive catalyst effects that are often underestimated. And we've definitely already fulfilled the first steps of Michael Saylor's 10 million Bitcoin prediction here. Of course, not everything yet, but this is really heading in the right direction. And now I've seen a really good, very interesting clip from Cole, from Action im Kopf. Here he's talking about the digital euro central bank currencies, in other words, digital central bank currencies, and also about Bitcoin. So he's also a big Bitcoin fan. Check this out. He's got some really awesome stuff. His videos are awesome too. Definitely check out his channel, an absolute legend. And now let's go.
If we briefly consider these two things and creatively combine them, digital euro exit tax, we know that this digital euro is the perfect tool to further control citizens. And also, when it comes to immigration and so on, to make it increasingly difficult. I just discovered something. Look here. Wiro. Wiro for you. And Wiro for business, the absolute hero for your money. And then you read through it and ask yourself, yes, what is this Wiro and where does it actually come from? As a product of the European Payments Initiative, a partnership of European banks and financial institutions, Wiro is the strong, independent European solution for digital payments. We want nothing less than to become the most popular, the most important payment platform in Europe by putting consumers at the center and relying fully on trust, security, and adaptability made in Europe. Well, if that isn't the perfect platform to introduce, for example, the central bank euro, you know what I have to say about that? Nope, I'm sticking with cash, and I'm especially sticking with it because, and we really need to get smart about this, folks, because even though cash is physical and you can hold it in your hand, it still comes from the ECB. It still comes from this system. And nowadays, we need a serious, real, and also digital additional alternative. And that alternative is not Wiro or anything like that, but it's very clear. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the one thing they can't control. Bitcoin is the one thing they also can't inflate. Bitcoin is the only truly decentralized solution that doesn't have a boss somewhere who sits there and can control Bitcoin's agenda alone. Everything that happens with Bitcoin has to be confirmed by the entire decentralized network all over the world. No individual holds the power alone. And that's exactly the opposite of this centralized approach of the EU and so on. What do you think? Why are they now coming around the corner again with this whole new crypto regulation, MiCA or whatever it's called, that's coming now? Because, of course, they realize that something is happening from the other side. And that's the revolution. But in the end, they can't do anything against Bitcoin. And that's the brilliant part.
Yeah, legendary statement right here. Be sure to smash the like button here for Koya. Really brutal. He really makes some intense content. You definitely have to check him out sometime. And that's exactly how it is. Bitcoin is the solution here. And that's why, if you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link for you below too. 21 Bitcoin. Here you can easily, safely, and simply use the code. You can still get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Exactly. Let me know in the comments below how you currently see everything. And guys, I'll see you. See you then. Peace out.